Welcome back to That Philly Sports Girl. I'm your host, Elise Person, and we are in a different studio this time, but we are going to be talking about all your Philadelphia sports as always. Let's get started with the Philadelphia Phillies, who have really turned things around as we are here in the All-Star break. The Phils have won 7 of their last 10 games and are now only 3.5 games behind the Mets in the hunt for first place. The All-Star weekend kicked off last night in Denver, Colorado at Coors Field with the Home Run Derby, where Mets first baseman Pete Alonso defended his crown, winning back-to-back home run derbies, defeating Trey Mancini in the finals. Tonight, the All-Star week continues with the American League versus the National League game set to start at 7:30 Eastern Time, 5:30 Mountain Time. The Phillies will have a starter in this year's All-Star game. Catcher JT Realmuto will start tonight. It will be his 3rd year playing in the All-Star game. However, it will be his first ever All-Star game start. Dave Roberts of the Los Angeles Dodgers will be manager for the National League, while Kevin Cash of the Tampa Bay will manage the American League team. The Phils' latest win was Sunday over the Boston Red Sox, which was a little bit of a shocking win as the Phillies were without Aaron Nola, Bailey Falter, Connor Brogdon, and Alec Boehm due to COVID and contact tracing. Alec Boehm tested positive Saturday afternoon, and due to contact tracing, Nola, Falter, and Brogdon were all placed under COVID protocols. The MLB has loosened restrictions on contact tracing for teams who are 85% vaccinated. 23 clubs within the league have reached this percentage, but the Phillies are among one of 7 teams who have yet to reach this percentage. In talking to Phillies players after the game Sunday, it is becoming more clear that the Phillies will most likely not reach that percentage, at least in the near future. Even some players who have received their vaccine expressed somewhat of concerns about getting the vaccine during season. There has been some Phillies players that got injured after the vaccine, and after Sunday's game, Brandon Kinsler talked about how the vaccine affected himself, Archie Bradley, and Matt Joyce. He said, quote, "I don't know, it really knocks you out bad. That night, and we had a game. I pitched 2 innings, and my body was just... I think everyone should recover from a week from that thing. Archie strained his oblique after it. Joyce had some back problems. There's got to be some science behind it," end quote. So I don't think he's really insinuating that the vaccine is causing injuries, but I think he's saying that it kind of knocks you out a little bit, and to be playing 100% is not realistic for some individuals after receiving that vaccine. After the game Sunday, Joe Girardi continued to reiterate the fact that he believes it is a personal choice on whether or not to be vaccinated. He continued on by saying, quote, "It is what it is. It's not like we're surprised something can happen. We always try to stay prepared. The guys do the best they can to protect themselves. There are some strands that are extremely contagious. You've got to deal with it," end quote. It's pretty unlikely, like I said a little bit earlier ago, that the Phillies will continue the rest of their season under 80% of the clubhouse being vaccinated. The major downfall to this, however, is just the Phillies are going to have to stay on their toes because any COVID protocols and contact tracing could take a handful of players out at any given moment in time. And this is a team that kind of needs to stay healthy and ready to play and stay in the race for first place and win their division. But, as you already said, you've got to deal with it. Before we move on to the rest of our Philadelphia sports teams, I do want to talk about the MLB draft, which wraps up tonight. The Phillies had the 13th overall draft pick and chose a high school power pitcher for the 2nd year in a row. The Phils selected Andrew Painter, a 6'7" right-handed pitcher from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He wrapped up his senior year in high school just this past spring, and in his senior year, he went 6-1 with a .31 ERA and struck out 91 batters in 45 innings. He played high school baseball actually with Dante Girardi, Joe Girardi's son, who just finished his freshman year at Florida International University. Painter is currently committed to the University of Florida, but he says he's ready to get his professional career started. Painter said, quote, "This is an unreal moment. It's something I worked hard for, and it's just the beginning of it," end quote. Phil scouts were in the stands each time Painter pitched in the past 12 months. Brian Barber, the Phillies scouting director, said about Painter, quote, "He's a large human being. You notice that immediately. Then you start digging into the baseball attributes. The delivery is an excellent starting point. The arm really works well, and he just has really good stuff," end quote. Barber continued on to say that the first time the Phils saw him was last summer and he was throwing up to 97 miles per hour. He also added that the icing on the cake about Painter was his ability to throw strikes and the feel he had for pitching, especially at that young of an age. Going through the rest of the Phils draft picks so far, in the second round, the 49th overall pick, the Phils picked up outfielder Ethan Wilson. In the third round, 84th overall pick, we selected outfielder Jordan Villas. In the fourth round, 114th overall pick, Phillies selected right-handed pitcher Micah Ottenbright. In the fifth round, 145th overall pick, right-handed pitcher Griff McCary was selected. Sixth round, 175th overall, right-handed pitcher Jose Pena Jr. was selected by the Phillies. In the seventh round, 205th overall, right-handed pitcher Christian McGowan was selected by the Phils. Eighth round, 235th overall, right-handed pitcher Jason Ruffcorn. Ninth round, 265th overall, outfielder Gavin Tonkel. And the 10th round, 295th overall draft pick, the Phillies selected outfielder Logan Kearney. So a lot of outfielders, a lot of right-handed pitchers from the Phils, but I mean, these are definitely positions we have been looking for a lot of help these past few seasons. So congratulations to all the newest members of the Phillies clubhouse, and I look forward to your added success within the organization. Now moving right along to the Philadelphia Eagles. Just this morning, Nick Sirianni announced that the Eagles will have 2 joint practices with other teams this training camp. August 16th and 17th, the Eagles will host the New England Patriots at the NovaCare Complex right before the Eagles' August 19th preseason game against the Patriots at Lincoln Financial Field. And on August 24th and 25th, the Eagles will travel to Florham Park, New Jersey for back-to-back days of practice with the Jets before their preseason game versus the Jets at MetLife Stadium. The Eagles report to camp July 27th, and the next day, July 28th, is the first day of training camp. These dates are just 2 weeks away. Very exciting stuff as we patiently, or if you're like me, impatiently await the beginning of football. This past Saturday, Eagles' first-round draft pick, Devonta Smith, took home an ESPY for Best Male College Athlete. The very next day, Smith was on a football field in Alabama hosting a youth football camp. Don't you just love to see that? He's just so excited to give back. He said he grew up attending youth football camps in Louisiana, and when asked what it means to now be doing them and giving back in Alabama, where he was a key member of Alabama's Crimson Tide football team, he said, quote, "It means a lot just knowing I'm welcome in Alabama. Just to be able to come back and do something like this, show my appreciation of the state and everyone that supported me," end quote. As we get closer and closer to training camp, we will be keeping an eye on players like Devonta Smith and how they shape up this preseason moving into the season. Now moving along to the Philadelphia Flyers. Reports from Sportsnet, Elliot Friedman and his 31 Thought column said that the Flyers organization and Jakub Voracek have discussed it may be time for a change between the organization and the 10-year Flyers veteran. It's important to note that there's no hostility or negative feelings between the two. And nothing has been set in stone on whether he will be leaving or not be leaving. There are just reports that the two parties may be looking to make some changes. There is talks of Voracek being picked up by a July pickup by the Seattle Kraken, which is an NHL expansion team which officially joins the league in the 2021-2022 season. The Kraken do get to select one player from each NHL team, So if Voracek is not picked up by the Kraken, Philadelphia will look to potentially put Voracek elsewhere, but both parties have also reportedly said that they prepare for Voracek to stay a Flyer if that's how the situation plays out. But there is definitely a real possibility Voracek will be wearing a different uniform for the first time in 10 years next season. I like Voracek. This past season, he was tied for team scoring led with 43 points. His impact is there. Last season, he led the team in assists. However, he is 32 years old and has been with the Flyers for the past 10 years, so I totally understand why a change of scenery has become a topic of conversation. Also, according to Friedman and his column, Flyers' Seth Jones trade is, at this moment, looking a little unlikely. If you remember from my last episode, I touched on the potential trade possibilities for the Flyers, one of them being defender Seth Jones from the Columbus Blue Jackets, who is currently one of the league's most sought-after free agents. And according to Friedman, the Flyers cannot get the commitment they want from Jones, at least for right now. There is still a lot more offseason left to go, and a lot of things can change during that time. And now finally moving on to the 76ers. According to The Atlantic's Sham Charania, the Sixers have opened up trade conversations regarding Ben Simmons. Charania reports that teams have engaged with the Sixers about a trade for Simmons, and they have been met with a high price threshold. The Sixers reportedly say they are looking for an all-star caliber player in return for Simmons. Reports say that even with Simmons' struggles offensively this past season, he is still in high demand among the rest of the league trading-wise. NBA reporter Mark Stein reports that the Cavaliers, Pacers, Timberwolves, and Raptors, and Kings are those known to have shown interest in Simmons so far. It will be interesting to see how this all plays out, especially with the NBA draft quickly approaching on July 29th. Last night, Team USA fell 0-2 in exhibition play for the first time since professionals were able to play in the Olympics. The loss was delivered to Team USA by Team Australia, who was led by Sixers Matisse Thybulle. In last night's game, Thybulle finished with 12 points, 3 steals, and 3 assists. He was on fire defensively, and once again, Thybulle just proves himself and shows that the NBA's all-defensive second-team selection showed again how he can defend some of the best in the NBA. And finally, in Sixers news, the Sixers have named a new CEO since Scott O'Neil resigned last month. Thaddeus Brown will take over as CEO of Harris Blitzer and Sports and Entertainment. He will begin August 3rd. Previously, Brown was the CEO of the Houston Rockets for 15 years before stepping down from that position in April. That's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for tuning into That Philly Sports Girl. We'll see you 2 weeks from today.